Okay. I think we're working. I don't know. Kind of cold and scared.
Let me try and refresh the page. Oh no, I actually need. You're probably going to need to get everyone to come to a new stream, mate.
Let's see here.
The stream looks black.
Oh, well, that's also that's there we go. There's that. Okay, Helsing sees me over on Twitch, so that's half the battle right there. Start a fresh stream. Oh, so here we go. Alrighty, this part's live at least. Good gravy. What? Yes, trying to hear you're right. This crazy face for the pony is very apropos. Oh man, man, oh man, oh man. That completely surprised me. Like everything just stopped suddenly, and I was like, "Wait, I'm in darkness. What? What? What?"
I've had that happen to me before. There was weirdly, actually, when I was living in Melbourne, there was a moment. This was exactly when Fall Guys had just come out, and I was playing it because I was like, let's see if this game is fun, right? And I had played a few games, and then the game where I was about to win, like first place, the instant before reaching the crown, power surge, power cuts out to my house, and then it comes back on 5 seconds later. And I was like, you could not have timed that worse.
Well, honestly, there's a lot of things that are for the worse right now. Pardon me one sec. I am reactivating my hard drives.
Reactivating hard drives.
Yes. Whoop. If I
You,
if I sound distant, because I'm currently trying to get around my computer. This this is a first for me. I've never had my entire home poo poo on me. Oh sure, YouTube has given me what for. Restream has been a confusing bit of something or other. But my home, this is a special kind of betrayal. Okay, okay.
trust no one, not even your house.
Oh, you ain't kidding. Oh boy. Now, when I told everyone earlier that your support goes back into my channel, one of the big things that has been a huge support is that I've been able to afford external hard drives. And external hard
Ah,
drives mean I don't have to copy everything between computers if I ever shift, or I can take a project with me. Uh, but in the event of a power outage, all those wonderful external hard drives disappear are off, and now I have to wait for them to come back. That's why I can't see the background that was part of my efforts. My goodness. So tonight has been surprising. Helsing,
wait, was your work on the background just erased just then?
well, let's see here. Illustrator's gotten better about recovery. So what I did create here is still good. But
Okay.
oh gosh, everything I linked as reference needs a little bit of finesse. I'm more afraid for my Wonderbolt background. Oh, beep. Okay, I think that's my hard drive saying I'm alive. Stop pestering me.
Hmm.
Well, if I've lost anything,
Well
then
done.
that is a reminder to all: save often. I really wish Illustrator and Photoshop had an autosave feature. That
You
would
see, this is why Adobe Premiere being less stable is actually a feature rather than a bug, because Adobe Premiere has so many close calls that every time there's a close call, it just reminds you to save.
there is.
That's
There
what
is.
happens. Adobe Premiere stutters, and I'm like, Control S.
Oh, right there with you. Let's see here. So the fact that there is no autosave feature for Photoshop and Illustrator, I consider to be a gross oversight. Really gross. Ew. Let's see if I close and open this again.
Adobe, please.
Cannot find the file. Wow, blank. That's great.
And Anthony is in chat, by the way.
Yeah.
Anthony's video on Flash was really good.
Trinary says, this is proof that God hates newbie Dash. You are not far from the truth there. Goodness knows most of the fandom doesn't love it. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. This totaled. I mean, the vectors are okay. These vectors are okay.
Huh.
And that's important. But all the images I had linked, thank goodness I was close to done with this. Woo! But I still need the hair for Yon Pony. For those who might be wondering, am I having like this demonic head chasing Shira Lee? Yeah, it's like, here we go. She all like, oh, Charlie, I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna bite you. No, I'm going to put this head on this body and change some features. So, Shira Lee's just the base pose. Oh my goodness. But also, Anthony, it is wonderful to see you. Oh boy. But now whoa, my rhythm's off. I've lost my groove. You've thrown off my groove. Groove.
I seem to have that effect on people.
Oh, no. Oh, wait, yes. We were talking about this before the stream. We could just say Cloud Cuckoo canceled.
Oh, right, yeah. So before the stream started, I was like, I was trying to discuss like what things are appropriate to talk about on the stream. That's why, like, at the absolute beginning, I was trying to adjust to not swearing, because I need an adjustment period, because it's a very important part of my identity is swearing all the time. But I was like, you know, I don't want to say anything that'll get you cancelled. And then we were joking about, like, we could call it #CloudCuckooCancelled. Something like that.
Well, I appreciate that you've been wonderfully family friendly for this. And I greatly appreciate
Except
that.
for the first 10 seconds.
Oh, come on. Hey.
Twice.
Oh, come on. 10 seconds in a 2-hour stream? Come on. You're being too hard on yourself. Come on. Oh, but
Sure.
Just before my home decided to betray me, I was talking about a literary freebie. The station I worked for was doing a video on the Left Behind video game, which, by the way, whoever was recording the footage was utter garbage at real-time strategy, so that didn't go anywhere. But it came with a free copy of the book, and I was curious, so I asked, could I take this free book? They said sure, and I read it, and that was a thing. It's not my thing, but I read it, and it's like, okay, I this is a freebie. I was curious. I didn't have to pay money. I didn't even have to go to a library to get this. And but I also felt no need to explore the sequels. So there you go. Freebie. Yay, free. Although a happier freebie was I bought the second Equestria Girls movie. And but it turned out they'd released a bunch of defective discs. So there was a send us a receipt, and we'll send you a replacement disc. So I did, but I also hadn't taken the movie out of its packaging yet, so I returned it.
Ah.
So I got Rainbow Rocks for free.
Oh.
And I've done my best to promote the franchise, so I'm not sorry. Oh, Double Dang.
Really, what are analysis bronies if not an unpaid PR department?
It's true. I mean, half the time they say no publicity is bad publicity. I don't know who they are. But Double Dang, there was someone in the chat who was asking for a shout out just before the power went. Arr.
Oh, that chat's probably gone.
Well, it will be back when YouTube is done processing, but well,
that doesn't do much good for us right now.
No, it doesn't. That usually takes like 2 hours or so. But anyway, I'm gonna do just a little bit work on this Pony's Mane. I do try to limit these to 2 hours because, Clyde, you've been very generous with your time, especially on your Saturday. But I don't want to occupy everyone's time. But let's see here. There was a question: if you could live in any of the 50 states, where would you like to live?
Whichever one I'm least likely to get shot in.
Hawaii it is.
All right. Well, probably not, because I'd be a colonizer if I was living in Hawaii. But I mean, I guess I'm a colonizer anyway. I'm living in Australia. Yeah, no, I am not enthusiastic about traveling to America, just because, like, compared to Australia, it sounds like it sounds like the Wild West. Like, it sounds like the Wild West never really went away. It's just that cowboys were replaced with police officers. Which is funny.
Yeah.
Well, not really, but you know.
Well, I've drawn a funny connection in my brain recently, so maybe I can share this with all of you. See what you think. I recently drew a connection between H.P. Lovecraft and Dave Chappelle. I should not take for granted. Do you know who Dave Chappelle is?
He's a stand-up comedian, isn't he?
Exactly right. And I'm pretty confident you know who H.P. Lovecraft is.
Yeah.
All right. Well, for any folks who are more familiar with Chappelle than Lovecraft, H.P. Lovecraft is like the horror writer. He basically became the definitive work on what they call cosmic horror. The whole premise of his stories is that we as humans live on this island of ignorance in a sea of terribly dark knowledge. And if we even dip a toe into this knowledge, we're confronted by just this overwhelming sense of being small, and how there are forces so malevolent out there, they crush us like as we would step on an ant, and it's terrifying. Now, Dave Chappelle was doing a stand-up piece where he talked about the age of spin. And he said to a young man in the audience, you know, you are living in one of the most tragic times, this era of spin, where there's so much information being thrown at you so fast, you just can't react to it. I'm still reacting to one tragedy, and 5 more get reported in the same day. And I drew this strange connection. I was like, wow, Lovecraft was kind of prophetic. It's just that the horror came not from any gargantuan beast from the stars. We're overwhelmed by this age of information / spin, where there's just so much being thrown. Chappelle stated the only way you can deal with it is to stop caring. And he went on to go about how he used to watch the Care Bears, and he was trained not to be apathetic. Never thought I'd hear Dave Chappelle talking about the Care Bear stare, but there you go.
Hmm.
So I thought, I kind of wonder if Lovecraft was tapping into something, but he didn't realize we do it to ourselves.
Well, in Lovecraftian stories, the protagonists usually do it to ourselves. Like, it's not usually the monster that comes looking for the protagonists in the Lovecraft stories. It's the protagonist that ventures into like the unknown, right? And goes looking for something, whether that's knowledge or fame or power or whatever, and then stumbles across the terrible beasts that represent all of the knowledge that we maybe wouldn't want to know, and are then confronted by that because they went in search of it, right?
Mm.
So I think that's I think that's probably more Lovecraft's thing, from memory at least. I did have a Lovecraft collection that I did read once. A lot of his stories are a little bit samey, and probably the only reason I think that is because I don't care about the cosmos at all. Like, I know that Lovecraft fans have this thing where they like try and catalog, and like, it's like Lovecraft is the kind of it's sort of the original like wiki based entertainment, where the quality or entertainment value of the work itself is kind of secondary to the fans' ability to write a wiki about it, kind of. Because like there are entertainment properties that where the fans, that's the majority of the appeal for the fans, right? That it's the wiki seems to be more of the focus than the story. But with Lovecraft, I kind of got that impression as well. Not that Lovecraft was writing in an era where wikis existed, so he wasn't doing it intentionally. But like, he did seem, but like, it seemed to me like Lovecraft was writing all of these stories because he was trying to explore this idea, but that people became more interested with the cosmology of Lovecraft than they were with the ideas that they represented. That was just my impression that I got from reading his work, though.
It's kind of funny. You just described my experience with Neon Genesis Evangelion. It's like I couldn't make heads or tails.
I've heard that people have opinions of that show.
Oh, many opinions. The most consistent message I've received is that people, how do I put this? People see, if you know the creator and what he was going through at the time, the story makes more sense. But I find that very frustrating because now I have to know someone's biography to understand this fictional story. I feel like I may not know the full depth behind it, but at the very least, couldn't I enjoy it for what it is on its own? So, but there was
I mean, there are. Go ahead.
Well, there was this blog, or website very early on in the internet, Gendo Akari's FAQ, where a person posing as a character from the show explained all the confusing symbology and mythology behind it that actually made sense, because otherwise I had not a clue what was going on anymore. And a critique I have is if I have to go somewhere else to understand the story I just watched, something important got left behind, namely a connection with the audience.
I mean, I don't think that I mean, I'm not a fan of stories that you have to pass together from multiple sources regardless, but it's not an illegitimate way of enjoying something. Like ARGs or alternate reality games can be quite entertaining. And, if you know anything about ARGs, then you know that oftentimes they have people pouring through like separate instances of, you know, media documents or whatever that the author has all created. And like the big famous one was apparently there was an ARG created for Halo 2, where part of the act was that the audience, members of the audience, would have to decode like where and when a public phone booth was going to get called by the developers, and then the developers would give each phone booth a different clue that would all piece together in some way that was related to the game, right? And one of the famous details is that the fans of Halo were so dedicated to working this out that one of the phone booths was answered in the middle of a hurricane. So a fan had actually gone out to the phone booth to answer it at the call that the ARG had said it would be called at, even though there was a hurricane in the area at the time. And the phone did ring and it was answered, and the guy basically like listened to the call and then, you know, pieced out, got under cover and got into shelter. But like, that's the kind of thing where it's not something I would ever do. Like, you know, a hurricane or not, I wouldn't like. The way that I enjoy media is not going out into the world to solve clues and decode stuff. Like, that's just not my lane. But it is, you know, evidently something that a lot of people enjoy regardless. So I don't think it's an illegitimate way of enjoying media. But what I do think is that you kind of have to match your audience with how you're getting them to enjoy your stuff. Because like what this kind of, because like I think this is related to like about 2 years ago there was a big like discourse on should video games be hard or have an easy mode. And like people, you know, the argument from like accessibility is like a game like Dark Souls, which is known for its difficulty, ought to have an easy mode because it'll let more people play the game. And I was never satisfied. And like I get that argument, and I was never really satisfied with the argument that, oh well, it's about the integrity of the game, or it, you know, the game is supposed to be played hard or whatever. Like I never got that argument, because what I sort of think is that you ought to account for how people want to consume your work, and you ought to tailor that to the specific audience. And part of that is also, you know, the audience themselves needs to be able to understand that the work is meant to be that it is intended to be consumed in a certain way. Like, you know, you ought to understand that, you know, Dark Souls, you know, ought to be difficult to a certain extent. Maybe you can tailor it so that it's difficult for you rather than, you know, straight up impossible for you. But like, if we were to say, you know, it should be easy for everyone, that's sort of like saying to me, ARGs shouldn't exist, or that, you know, going outside the text to find more information and complete the story shouldn't exist. And I don't think that any of these shouldn't exist. Like, I do think that they are valuable ways of exploring how to tell stories in fiction, even though they're not for me. So I'm just kind of, I guess the main takeaway is that I think people ought to be aware that certain pieces of fiction or entertainment are just not for them, that they're not the audience that will enjoy this sort of material. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I sometimes remind myself I'm not the target audience of MLP. So that to sort of check myself when I'm about to go on a tirade. I just say, you know what, this doesn't work for me. I'm not the target audience, though. But well, to give my 2 cents on should a game be hard, there's a great deal of pride in defeating a difficult game. But I would argue, if the goal is to prove that you had the mad skills to do this, I'd rather there be a optional piece of content like a super class of armor or something to display that status. But I'm a weird person in that even fighting games I would play to know the character endings. I wanted to know the story. If the game is pretty much denying me that, then I have no incentive to play, period.
Well, I
Uh,
mean, my whole thing though is that if you go to something like Devil May Cry, like the Devil May Cry series is notoriously like skill intensive, right? Like you can
mhm.
pull off, you know, really, really intense combos in that game, and people put in hours and hours and hours and hours of time refining their skills at Devil May Cry.
Mhm.
But Devil May Cry still has difficulty settings. But the key thing about Devil May Cry is that it not only has an easy difficulty setting, but it also has difficulty settings that go way beyond like what a normal game would put in. So not only is there hard, very hard, extreme, and so on, but like some of the difficulty settings, which have bizarre names like Dante Must Die or Heaven and Hell or whatever, have parameters like if you get hit once, you lose. You just straight up lose the instant you get hit by anything.
Wow.
So you're not allowed to take a single point of damage for the entire game. And you can play the game like that. You can play no damage runs of Devil May Cry if you believe that you're skilled enough at the game.
I am
And so you
not.
could possibly like make yeah, yeah. So you could possibly argue that like giving Dark Souls difficulty settings is can also even like help the people who want to prove their metal and like be like I am the most skilled bestest person at Dark Souls
Mm.
by not only putting in an easy mode for people who just want to get through the game and don't want to put in the hours, but you can put in harder difficulty settings like get through Dark Souls without leveling up once could be a difficulty setting, or get through Dark Souls with the starting broken sword only could be a difficulty setting. um, Stuff like that. um, and like you can kind of like tailor to that. um, but like I still think that there ought to be this awareness that certain things are just outside the scope of what a person wants. So like when people talk about like should difficulty settings have an easy mode, should Dark Souls have an easy mode, or should you go outside? Because the reason I got on this train of thought in the first place is because you were like, I don't want to go outside the text to get the full story. I feel like the full story should be just in what I'm consuming right now. um, that like that is a perfectly legitimate criticism, but there also has to be the sort of understanding that like different people enjoy things in different ways. Like some people enjoy harder games, some people enjoy these weird ARG type things where you have to go outside the text to get the full picture. Some people enjoy like you know filling out the wiki of a property more than they enjoy actually consuming the story of that property. um, and so it's all these different things, and that there's often that a lot of the arguments, and this is both sides, seem to be predicated on there ought to be a one size fits all version of
Mm.
every single thing.
Ah.
Like there should be this one size fits all version of Dark Souls, there should be this one size fits all version of ARGs or wiki based stuff. And my opinion is that you ought is that art doesn't just require a responsibility of the artist to produce content for an audience. It also requires a certain level of awareness on the audience for, is this thing for me? And if it isn't for me, maybe I can just move on to something else, right?
Mm. With that in mind, I'd like to give a shout out to all the folks who put together game movies, all the cutscenes, all the in-game information.
Oh yeah.
Particular favorite is Gamer's Little Playground. Uh, I recently watched the Dead Space series, which I never played, just to find out what it was about, and I got a much better picture. Because goodness knows, I don't think I could have gamed my way through it all. So I get what you mean, and I hear what you're saying about not a one size fits all. I guess to articulate my frustration when the first Halo game, I've been an avid Halo fan. When the first game came out, I didn't know the full story, but I got the basics. There was a war, humans on one side, aliens on another, and you go from there. Fast forward to Halo 5, where I'm part of a team, and yet I never get to know these characters. Now, there's expanded lore, there's expanded universe stuff that goes into their histories. But at that point, I feel like you've taken something very core to getting invested in this game and outsourced it. I'm all for people being so fascinated they want to know more about these characters, but I knew nothing about them for most of the game. So
I think what you're touching on there is more that like the series changed what its appeal was,
mhm.
and I can sort of get behind that because like there are a lot of series that I would argue in an attempt to evolve kind of changed the core appeal in a way that is like not conducive to how people originally consumed the work. And like the quintessential example that I go to is Red versus Blue, the series by Rooster Teeth. Like Red versus Blue started out as a series of short skits, and it had a semblance of a story, but the story wasn't that important. What was kind of important was the character gags, and they even like did a send up at some point when they were finishing up their like Halo 2 era of their show, where they kind of did a send up of the story doesn't matter that much, where they had the series finale have like 5 different alternate endings, and one of the alternate endings was they all just shoot each other and then they all die,
I remember that.
which was pretty funny, yeah. And the but then at some point I recall like it was around like this, they called the series like Revelation or something, um, where they started naming all of the seasons different things, and they had this overarching story that kind of took itself seriously, even though the characters themselves were still silly. So like you have like Griff and Sarge and Caboose, being their silly red versus blue selves, but around them was this kind of semi-serious story of like agent, agents named after states, like Agent Washington and Agent North Dakota and South Dakota and Agent Texas or whatever,
Hmm.
who all like were trying to do like serious plot stuff and spoke in serious voices and didn't behave in these really silly ways. And you started having this expanded lore of what, Red versus Blue actually was, like what it really is. Like it's a simulation where the red team and the blue team are actually just part of the same company. It's just that the organization has them fight each other for some, sinister reason or whatever. Um, and and like that was such a fundamental shift in the appeal of the show that it just kind of like didn't make sense to me anymore. And like I get that things are supposed to evolve. Like I wouldn't want to watch like Red versus Blue season 1 just remixed for 18 seasons, because that gets old. And I know that things get old because like, I used to watch the Nostalgia Critic, but then the Nostalgia Critic got old. I used to watch, Zero Punctuation by Yahtzee Croshaw, but then eventually that got old. So I get that people want to evolve and keep their format fresh, but I also think that sometimes certain formats don't lend themselves very well to refreshing them, if that makes sense. So something like Nostalgia Critic or Zero Punctuation or Red versus Blue, I actually think that would be more it would have more artistic integrity for them to just end the show at some point and move on to something else than it would be to either stick to their guns and watch their show get stale, or try and change it in this new and refreshing way and just completely lose the appeal of what the show was in the first place. But also, when you do refresh it, you run the risk of like it not really making sense anymore. Like Red versus Blue doesn't make sense as a serious serialized story. You know what I mean?
I do. In fact, it's funny enough, the most recent Red versus Blue season, totally new cast. Well, 90% new cast. And
What's the point even of that?
And much, much more action based now. Absolutely
Right.
action based. As a quick aside, I just opened the Wonderbolt background that I was working on at the start of what we will call the last stream. I might supercut these together just to have it all make sense. I was terrified that I had lost everything I'd worked on, including like this statue guy. But no, it's there. I'm okay.
Thank goodness.
You won't hear me.
Thank goodness.
You won't hear me cry manly tears much.
The Adobe gods have smiled on you this day, but only this day.
Only this day. Don't take it as a norm. Also,
Yeah.
just want to give a few quick shout outs in the chat, folks who joined us again. Let's see here. I saw Pokemon Fire Eevee, Noma Ruiz Gallardo, who's always kind enough to phonetically spell their name, Evangelion 007, Prism Shard, and funny enough, we have royalty in the chat. Princess Celestia is there. But she needs to go charge her laptop. I'm assuming it's solar battery powered. And yes, Ali Penner, there are a few happy tears streaming down my face. I didn't lose all my work like an idiot. Because I would really feel like an idiot. Oh my goodness. But we're now...
I have to say, just because sorry.
No, please go ahead.
Well, are you wrapping up?
Just about to, but I will say to Trinary, of course Princess Celestia is a PC. It's in her name. But I don't mean to interrupt. What were you about to say?
Oh, I was just wanting to ask you a quick opinion because I keep mentioning this to everyone I know. But you said that you liked the Harry Potter series, and I just started talking on certain things changing their appeal halfway through. I'm of the opinion that the Harry Potter series kind of did a sharp right turn around book 4, where it moved away from being a short series of whimsical children's adventures and turned into a long fantasy epic. Do you kind of see how that might be the case, or are you kind of like, no, it's a cohesive series from beginning to end and it all makes sense?
No, I do see how it changes. I mean, one, it gets much darker.
Oh yeah.
I mean, part of the reason I remember when the second movie was coming out, everyone was talking. The books were like several spots ahead, and people were talking about, oh, but everyone loves the second book because it's the one where this larger story, it's self-contained. There isn't this larger menace taking form just yet. It's probably the last pick up and put down book in the series. And later in the series, they add more meaning to the events of the second book. I know on the off chance someone else has not read the books, I don't want to give it away. But it added different meaning to it. It's like, okay, that makes sense. It's clever, but I do see the tonal change and the very different feel as you go along. So it could be a little bit of both. It could be fully planned that way, or much in the same vein as George Lucas and everything that evolved through the original Star Wars. It could have just been serendipitous choices and working with what was already established to make something new.
Aye.
Oh, I should also give a shout out. Riddle of Lightning is in the chat. And Riddle, I'm not sure if you were part of the previous Tragically Destroyed stream, but we featured your artwork. So thank you for that.
Yeah, Riddle of Lightning has been just drawing moments constantly on Twitter. I've been seeing it the whole time.
I think the last time...
The moment that you went offline has been elegantly captured by them drawing a picture of your house trying to stab you with a knife, and you saying "et tu house."
Et tu housey house. Well, perhaps that's a good way to close things out. Let me see if I can find this Fulfillment Friday. And Dark Souls boss music. Oh my goodness. Even Cloud Cuckoo canceled. Riddle, you are just throwing these out there.
Thank you.
Okay, let's get these on the screen. I am gonna wrap things up in short order because I haven't had dinner and I don't want to take up all of Cloud's Saturday morning, which I probably already have. Sorry. Whoop.
I mean, I'll be getting lunch after this.
See, all the more reason. Must get this stuff. Must give you time. Yeah, I have to ask. I'm not up to speed on how Australia is doing with human malware. Are you able to dine in, or are you just gonna have something at home?
So there is currently no human malware in Tasmania, which is the state that I'm in. So Australia, the little upside down triangle island at the bottom of Australia is currently where I am, and there is no human malware there. We have had a few waves in Victoria and New South Wales of human malware, and there was another one in Queensland at some point, but it's generally under control, is the human malware. We've got very, very good malware protection in our country at the moment, and decent regulations. But there's so little. In fact, malware has had such an absence in Tasmania that we can basically just wander around and walk around and it's fine. We're asked to socially distance and wash our hands and everything, but it's pretty casual down here because there's literally no malware. None whatsoever.
Pardon me while I rage with envy. Oh,
It's amazing what happens when when you just lock down for a few months.
well, I got to celebrate. I got a vaccine 2 weeks ago, and I got to go to a bookstore for the first time in over a year last weekend.
Nice.
That felt good. That felt really good. Oh, I shouldn't delete these so hastily. Lightning, thank you for these wonderful moments that make me... Riddle, I should say. Riddle Lightning, thank you for these wonderful moments. It has a fun twist to what was a... Oh! Well, hang on. It was a... Oh! Moment. Why the... Does this have to happen to me? I feel like I'm getting right in the... There we go. That was my general feeling at that moment in time. It's also very glad I had those darn sound boxes right next to me. Anywho, so Cloud, thank you so much for joining me tonight and just sharing all your thoughts.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, this is fun. And I will try not to take years to get in contact with you again, which is... I've said that a lot on these streams. I am bad at this. Oh my goodness.
Maybe I can get you in as a guest voice on a video of mine if I have a video appropriate to it, because that is the way that I get people in my videos in a way that's not cringe. Is I get people to guest voice. So maybe if I find a book that your voice is suited to.
Well, by all means, and I promise I will be more prompt about getting the audio to you.
I'm going to direct you. I made the mistake of not doing that once.
Well, then it is a maybe not a.
That wasn't me referring. That wasn't me referring to you. That was me referring to somebody else who sent me a whole bunch of audio with like mispronounced words, where I had to get them to record it again. Sorry, I'm taking up the end of your stream.
Not to worry, but this is fun. I would be glad to take part, and I'm grateful to everyone for tuning in and enjoying the chaos. As again, et tu house, et tu. Trust no one. So, in the meantime, I will wish everyone a wonderful evening, a wonderful weekend. Hope you stay safe and well. And, we'll just see what further chaos life throws at us. Hopefully it's just a blown fuse or two. So,
all right.
Have a good night.
Good night, everyone.
I'm Silver-Quill.